I wanted to start with Project Kodak, which is what you've called your sort of triage approach to assessing which assets will be resilient in a down market. How are you sorting out older film buildings, as you've characterized them, from the digital ones? So which qualities do the film properties have in common?
I would probably frame it not as triage, but more as sort of an eyes wide open approach, right? Recognizing that the world's changed. And, what was competitive pre-COVID in this post-COVID world isn't going to be the same. And so when we began to look at our portfolio, we said, okay, which are the buildings that our customers are going to want to come back to and have the characteristics that would make them competitive in that post-COVID world. And, I think it was even different than I think, before in terms of the standards, right, that were out there. I mean, clearly access to transportation is key. Having the right level of amenities and programming in the buildings. You think about this, you want this to be magnetic. You want people to come back to work. So you want to make it easy. You want to make it compelling. You want to make it energizing. You want to feel like there's a sense of community. You want to have places for people to come, collaborate, engage. And not only in the building, but frankly, the community around the building. You want that to be a place that people feel, wow, this is exciting to be back in New York, to be on the streetscapes, to go to that restaurant, to go in that outdoor park. And so those are the buildings that we think would be competitive. And when we first went through the process, and I charged the team with doing it, they came back and almost every building sort of fit within the same band. And so I had to say, okay, we got to get more granular because that can't be true. So we then created a more objective level of rating system in terms of, what are the key metrics that we would focus on the areas that I spoke about: location, infrastructure, amenities, the types of tenants, the community around the buildings, et cetera. And then, when we went through it all, we probably ended up with about 10% of our buildings that I would put into the film category, which, and then, part of that test on the film category is say, okay, is there a number in terms of a rent that you'd be able to attract tenants to that building? And 61 Broadway was one of the examples where I remember the team said, well, there's all these different tenants in the marketplace. Here's where the rent is that we deem as market rent. I said, okay, lower it by 10%. And come back and tell me if you can bring one of those tenants to the buildings, and lower to 10%, and they still didn't come, right? And so that sort of gives you a feel that building's going to have a hard time being competitive on a going forward basis.
So I've heard, you talk about this like building by building approach. Do you think that this is something that other developers and other landlords are going to start having to do if they're not already doing it?
I'm a big believer of trying to be proactive, right? And not let nature take its course, but try to sort of get ahead of what's happening. And so if they haven't done it yet, it's going to happen naturally to them, because as loans start to come due or there's capital needed for buildings, they're going to have to either make investment decisions themselves, and they're going to have to say, am I throwing good money after bad? Or they're going to have to go to the market and try to source lenders or equity, and they'll be told if they're throwing good money after bad, right? So it's going to ultimately happen. And it's been, these things tend to start slow, and then they start to pick up steam and speed, right? With each transaction, and each time there's something that happens with that sets a valuation mark or a precedent, things start to, happen more quickly. And then obviously as loans start to mature and we get, that's going to continue to sort of push us.